Looking the part. Marial could have been mistaken for a film set this morning as dozens of riders, all dressed in traditional 1914 uniforms, prepared to set off from this tiny rural village in the northeast of France. From here they will head southwards, following as closely as possible the route the cavalry took 100 years ago. The Warhorse Ride has been created by a small group of former cavalry officers who wanted to pay tribute to the men and horses who fought and died in the Great War.
The Warhorse Ride is a commemoration of the last Cavalry Division ever to sail from the shores of England for war in Europe, and we thought it was something worth commemorating.
And tell me about the retreat, the route that you're taking.
The British Army first encountered the Germans at Mons, which is about 30 miles north of where we're standing, and under enormous pressure of numbers was forced to begin a process of retreat which lasted for the next 3 weeks and took them very nearly to the outskirts of Paris before the moment was judged right to mount a counterattack which ended in the great Battle of the Marne, which turned the tide of the German advance and drove the Germans back really to the line of the Marne and the Aisne, where the great race for the Channel began and the terrible siege warfare of the next 4 years. It was enormously important because the German plan of the German offensive plan was to destroy the French army in 60 days before turning eastwards to face the Russians. And the intervention of the British Expeditionary Force undoubtedly played an enormous part in frustrating the Schlieffen plan, as it was called, to encircle and destroy the French army, and it changed the course of history.
Each unit or battalion that formed part of the order of battle in 1914 is represented on the ride by a member of that unit's successor regiment of today.
Now, the riders are all dressed in 1914 field service uniform with the insignia and weaponry relating to the regiment that they're all representing. Now, Merlin here is dressed as a private. Merlin, talk me through your uniform.
Well, I'm dressed in 1914 private's uniform for the 18th Hussars, so that involves puttees, spurs, a haversack, a 1914 water bottle, my ammunition pouches, and a .303 rifle, which was the standard issue weapon at the time.
And you've also got an additional item on your...
That's right. Well, my great-grandfather was actually in the 19th Hussars, which is a very similar regiment to the one that I'm representing, in 1914, and was machine gunned off his horse by a German machine gun during a cavalry charge. And I'm wearing his dog tags alongside my own whilst on this ride, with a groat, which is there for buying bread and cheese if you're behind enemy lines and you need to be able to buy some supplies.
And would everyone have had one of those?
Apparently so. I'm not an expert on it, but I think that's the case.
Brilliant. And then we've got Ed here. Now, Ed, you're being an officer on this ride, so talk me through what you're wearing.
Well, it's actually very similar to what we'd wear as our number 2 or our service dress. So the only real differences are that I wear the ranks on my sleeve rather than on the shoulder, and wearing the Sam Brown, which has got the attachment for the Webley Mark IV, which is this little holster here, and still have the 1908 cavalry pattern sword, which we still use today, ceremonial, which would have been used in action this time 100 years ago.
And is it comfortable?
No. Not terribly. It is usually, but it's just the boots are a little bit tight.
And you've got a special connection to this ride as well, haven't you, Ed?
Yes, it is. I'm wearing the boots that my grandfather wore here 100 years ago today. He was the 13th Hussar, Anthony Wingfield, and also the sword that my grandfather had, the 12th Lancers, and also here actually my great-grandfather's marching cutlass that he again took with him in the same campaign as part of the Kemp sharpshooters. So 3 different grandparents, but all coming together in the same ride of the retreat, the 1st Cavalry Division.
Today they will head for Moy-de-Laine, the site of one of the last true cavalry charges, before continuing south to the Somme and on to their final destination of Nery. With 100 miles of ground to cover, the spectacle of these 26 magnificent horses and their riders is likely to create quite a stir across the peaceful French countryside. Hannah King, Forces News in Marial, France.